Welcome to Automotive World, everyone. I'm your host, Vinny Mystery, and we have some news out of Nissan. This isn't really new. We kind of have known this was going to happen, and for a lot of us, this vehicle in particular has kind of been in this state for many years now, the latter half of this end of the decade. Fortunately, the Nissan GTR. It's no more. We knew this was going to happen. Nissan told us this was going to happen. And like I said, this vehicle has been essentially kind of gone from prominence for a long time. When this vehicle came out, the early to mid 2000s, coming off the older GTRs, this was an amazing vehicle. I mean, the styling, it looked so much reminiscent of the older one. Had amazing performance. With the all-wheel drive, but unfortunately, out of Motor One, and like I said, we've known this for a while. Nissan is going to do two special variants for the very last R35 GTRs for the North American market. Now, Nissan has been talking about this, like I said, for a long time. They announced on Friday that GTR production for the North American market will end in October of 2024 with two special models, being the Skyline and the Takumi Edition. That is going to celebrate the world-beating performance car. This car holds a lot of records. This car has been very, very prominent in pop culture and motorsport racing. This has been a car that has ultimately been the benchmark and set the benchmark higher. That being said, we know that Nissan was going to take this car away. We know that in other markets, they are saying they are going to continue beyond October. However, it's not going to be very long before R35 production around the world goes away. In America, it'll go away October, but it won't be around very long. Now, we have seen renders of an electric GTR. Nissan has done some concepts. Nissan has talked about it. And we come down here, these last two trims are going to be very expensive trims. Some of these trims are going to be easily from anywhere from $133,000 to over $153,000. It's going to feature that twin turbo V6, 565 horsepower, the 6-speed dual clutch, all-wheel drive. We don't know how many numbers they're going to do on production, but like I said, when this car came out in 2007, it was the benchmark, and it raised the benchmark very much. Now, Nissan, as we say down here, they have shown concepts of an electric GTR concept. Nissan officials and Nissan spokespeople and corporate people for Nissan have talked about an electric GTR. We know Nissan is looking at electric options in terms of electric sports cars, electric pickup trucks. So, despite that, we do have a statement in the release here saying that while the R35 is going to leave the unforgettable legacy, Nissan is hyper-focused on the next era of innovation. And Nissan, as I said, has shown an electric GTR concept being the Hyperforce. Now, we've also seen rumors that have said, the new GTR won't arrive for another 2 to 4 years, and it's true. More than likely, as we see down here, when we get a new GTR, assuming we do, whether it's called the Hyperforce, when we get it, it's not going to be for a while, because Nissan, right now, if we look at their current lineup, there's not one vehicle where it's like you can pull apart from. With a lot of vehicles, it's like with the GTR, it's like, okay, with the new Z, you could see, there was inspiration in things from the older generations and older models, but we were able to pull things off from that. This is going to be an all-new model for Nissan, and this would be a bespoke model. It would make sense for them to not have it arrive until the end of the decade, because when this car comes out, it's going to be fully electric. If this was not to be fully electric, I would be extremely surprised, and I don't see Nissan trying to do hydrogen or working on a hybrid. So this is going to be a fully electric car. that is going to set the benchmark and the baseline for the rest of the lineup for the Nissan Z. Whether they decide to go with just the Nissan Z name, or they decide to go with, as this would have been the Nissan Z400, maybe they'll go with the 450 or whatever. But that car that's going to come out is going to set the benchmark, and it's going to set up the brand in terms of their performance and enthusiast sports cars for a very long time. It's going to be the first to be full EV. So this kind of is unfortunate news. It sucks. I wish the GTR could stick around, but ultimately it is, the writing has been on the wall, and Nissan has shown they haven't really updated the styling of the car. They have not updated the interior, nor have they really done anything with the performance in terms of, a newer engine, a newer, transmission or anything. Nissan really hasn't done much. Nissan really has just let the car sit there. And it's really quite clear that, Nissan wasn't really interested in doing another gasoline GTR. And this is going to suck because, unfortunately, this is the last ICE GTR. What does frighten me is, what is Nissan really interested in doing this car? Is this a car that we actually are going to see again? I'm not sure. In the current state to which Nissan is in financially and where they are, we can also argue that Nissan doesn't maybe have, maybe not necessarily the money, but maybe they would have their time better spent with R&D and other things on SUVs and things like another Frontier or something like that. So this is going to be really, really interesting. This really sucks. I've always thought the GTR was a great car, cool car. But like I said, the writing has been on the wall. Nissan has pretty much left the car almost untouched, only giving it 2 facelifts over 17 years, and they really, really have struggled to move on from that. The Z is a really, really nice car, but Nissan in their sports cars and enthusiast lineup really, really have struggled. And like I said, it shows here with the GTR, them just not continuing to update it. That's also what scares me, is Nissan even, are they just teasing it just to keep excitement in the brand? And if this vehicle does come out when the next GTR comes out, assuming it is called a GTR, is Nissan actually going to care about it? Are they going to continually update and improve the product? That's going to be remains to seen, because honestly, the GTR I think was just so good that luckily it was able to survive all these years. But when you ultimately look back at the GTR, 2 facelifts over 17 years, very, very little updates. I mean, it's really sad because Nissan brought a car to the world that was the new benchmark, and it raised the standard for supercars. And then, sadly, they just let it go, and they just kind of let it sit there for 17 years. So, like I said, this is something that we've all known for a while. It just sucks. My thoughts on this are it just sucks. But at the same time, it's also the fault of Nissan. They never wanted to continue trying to improve the product. So, despite though us having teasers and concepts of what is to be supposedly the next GTR, looking at the way Nissan is operating, looking at numbers for the GTR selling, look at the numbers of the Z, even the Frontier, which does need some more updates now, looking at Nissan getting rid of the Titan and Max, but Nissan is doing a lot of kind of restructuring right now. And like I said, I just don't know if Nissan has financially, the actual money, the labor, or just the resources for R&D on something like this. When Nissan could probably spend that R&D on something would give them a much higher return, probably would be a much more boring car, but would sell them more cars and make them more money. And just, like I said, just seeing how the GTR has been treated over 17 years, they just kind of, They just left it there. And luckily that thing, when it came out, it's been struggling to defend itself, but luckily it was still able to defend itself. But Nissan has to understand that when you're in this type of space, when you're trying to make a supercar, an enthusiast sports car, and you could maybe even say a hypercar, you don't leave a car out there for 17 years. You don't leave a car out there for 17 years, do a few facelifts. Like, when you're in the business of making a sports car and a supercar, you need to every year have a new update. Every year, you need to be improving on the powertrain, improving on performance, improving on horsepower. Especially for what Nissan is charging for the GTR, it just sucks. On one hand, I'm sad to see it leave, but on the other hand, maybe it's better that it goes out while it's on top, because clearly when it was around, Nissan didn't care. That's gonna do it for now, everyone. Like I said, I hope we see the GTR return in at some form, whether it's full EV, which is what it's more than likely going to be. Obviously, there's probably a lot of people who are not going to like that, but hopefully we see the GTR come back around, whether even if it's in an EV form, and hopefully Nissan, you do what you did with the last GTR when it came out, put everything into it, but continuously, update the product and take care of the product. So that's going to do it for now. Let me know what you guys think down below. Is it worth Nissan coming out with another GTR if they're just not going to continuously update it for another 10, 15, almost 20 years and just, stick with one thing? Are we interested in the GTR anymore? Does it really matter? Like I said, they haven't updated this thing really in the past 17 years much at all. So is it worth it for Nissan to come out with another GTR, or is it just another teaser just to, remind us of what was once a really good, big, and prominent brand? Let me know what you guys and girls think down below. That is going to do it for now. Thanks for watching, everyone.